So what we're doing now is we're setting up our virtual machines. You should all have received an email with a link. There were some permission issues, but those should all be sorted now. You should be able to click on that link to start your register your virtual machine. Once you've registered your virtual machine, you can click on the toggle switch here to turn it on. I want you to use the version 2, not the version 1. The version 1 will be discontinued and probably deleted in the next couple of days. You should only have one. Okay? When this is running and you shut down your virtual machine, you need to come back into your browser and turn off the machine. If it says running and you're not using it, go in and turn it off. Okay? Wait one. Okay. It's just perfect. Okay. As you can see, it does take a while to fire up the first time. The last VMs I gave you, I think I had 16 gig of RAM and 4 cores. These have 32 gig of RAM and 8 cores. That's not really the issue though, because I was able to get this instance while we're waiting for our machines to start. I was able to get Remnux working again on my environment just to make sure, using only 4 gig of RAM, 16 megabytes of video memory, and 1 core, and I was still able to get this VM to work. I don't think the problem is memory or numbers of cores. I think the issue is hard drive read-write, or file I/O as we call it. I think there is so much file I/O happening in the academic area. I think there is so much file I/O happening in the Azure labs that nobody can do anything anymore. They're just overwhelmed. So I don't think the issue is memory or numbers of cores. This is what we're working towards, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, but not in this environment. Okay? What I think the issue is the file I/O. However, if you have more RAM and you have a couple of more cores, you can get around some of the issues of file I/O, and that's what I'm trying to do now. Alrighty. Once you see that your VM is running, you have again the little connect to your VM icon. You click on it and you could say save the file or open it. I prefer to save it normally, and then it should be in your list and you can select it and it'll open it up. The password for this, I just realized I should have forced you to change your passwords, but that's okay. I can leave that for you to do. The password for this connection. Alright? Your username is pentest. That's your password. Remember it. Remember me. You can change your password at any time. You can go back here and change the password when the machine is not running. This is where you change your password. Okay? It's not possible when it's running, but if you want to change your password, that's where you would do it. Click on OK. The password is right here. It's this blue text right here. Okay, that's easier to see now. Okay, so that's the password for this. You should all see the password in the chat, whatever. Okay. Did anybody else have any questions or problems or issues? Alrighty, so let's move on. Just like before, I don't know if you saw this the last time we tried or if it was even working for you, I've configured this VM for us. First things first, I made this loud red desktop so you would know where you are. I wanted to make sure that you only do malware work in this environment. One of the tricks that we use in information technology is we will move our start button somewhere else. I've moved the start button to the top. So again, it's a completely different environment, and that's how I want you to look at it. If you're using the VM and the taskbar is at the top, the start menus button is in the upper left corner, then you're in the right machine. If it looks like a normal machine, you're in the wrong machine. And that's why I chose this big, gaudy red desktop that I found online, solely to make sure that you know where you're supposed to be. Okay? I've also downloaded and I've installed a couple of things. I installed Firefox. If you go to the downloads directory, I also installed 7-zip, so that's ready to go. I've also downloaded a couple of VMs for us to use in this class so that you can actually set up the VMs going forward today. I've also gone through and disabled a number of things. I've removed a lot of the software, removed a lot of the crap. I went into the store and disabled the store. Everything to give us as much performance as possible in this virtual environment. Okay? I also did an update today, so you shouldn't need any updates for the next little while, and it should give us time to set up our environment and hopefully give a good run of it. Any questions? Okay, yeah, no, we got that covered. Perfect. Alrighty, any questions? Okay, I had something in the chat, but that's okay. So if everybody can, inside of their malware VM, if you could go to downloads and install Virtualbox at this time. I thought about installing Virtualbox, but I really want you to get into the habit of making your own test environment. This is going to take a long time. As I said before, the issue with this environment is file I/O. The defaults for all of this are fine. Default, 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 install, default. I'm going to get a pop-up and I'm going to say yes. Yes, and defaults are the way to go. So the default is don't install. So actually, yes. Always check Oracle and click on install. You need to enable this to install host-only network adapters. And that's what's going on there. And then once you're done, you can start the Oracle VM. That actually went faster than earlier. Interesting. And so at the end of the day, you have a clean install of Virtualbox inside of a virtual machine. This process is called nested virtual machines and is usually considered a less than good idea. But that's okay. That's the wrong one. That's not the one I wanted to show you. This is the one I want to show you. So let's just do this then. Usually this is considered a bad idea, but what I did was I went in and actually selected a virtual machine template that allows me to do virtualization. I specifically selected the large nested virtualization template. As I said, 8 cores, 32 gig of RAM. The issue really isn't the memory or the processors. The issue really is file I/O. And we're really going to see it now, I'm afraid. Because now what we want to do is we want to import one of these virtual machines. Oh yes, before I forget, I also went in to Defender. So I went into Windows Defender. I just typed in Defender on the start menu, and I can go to Windows Security. I can select Virus and Threat Protection. You don't have to do this, but when we take a look at Manage Settings and exceptions or exclusions, I added an exception for a folder just in case we need it. Now, I don't think it was necessary, but I made this an exception so that we could download some stuff to this directory. Actually, I think I messed that up. I just looked at that again. Wait a minute. I think I messed it up because I changed the directory name. Yeah, I messed it up. So go in there, remove that, add an exclusion of a folder, go to your downloads, select the malware not scanned folder so you have an exception. Again, how did I do that? The old one was fine, but I changed the directory name and it didn't update it inside of Windows Security. So we're going to have to fix that. We don't, but I want you to get into this habit. Start and just start typing Defender, D-E-F-E-N-D-E-R, and it'll give you the Windows Security app. Click on Windows Security, click on Virus and Threat Protection, select the Manage Settings option, and scroll down to where you talk about exclusions. And we want to add or remove exclusions. You want to remove the wrong one that's there, so select the drop down and remove. And then you want to add an exclusion. We're going to add a folder, and we are going to navigate to our downloads directory and select the malware files not scanned folder so that we can add an exception to our system that's not going to be harassed by the antivirus software. Anytime you download something, you want to ensure you either download it to that folder or you move it to that folder at that time. Okay? I'm also going to add an exception for the Virtualbox environment as well, because we don't need it scanning that either and coming across weird hashes or strings that it finds dubious. But we'll deal with that later. Okay? Now, what we want to do is import a VM. You can select Import in Virtualbox, or you can go File, Import Appliance. There's a little folder icon along the right side, right here. Click on the folder icon, go to Downloads, again, Malware Files Not Scanned, and select Remnux V7 for Virtualbox. Click on Open, click on Next. We could change the parameters here, but we're going to need to add another network adapter anyway, so we're going to change these after it's imported. We're going to leave this all the same and select Import. This is going to take about 10 minutes. This is the old sample or example of Remnux. That's, I think, version 6. It's the version before this one. It's the version I used with the last group of students. You do not have to install that. I have it on your systems as a fallback. If we have continued problems with version 7, which is based on Ubuntu 18.04, we're going to fall back to version 6, which is based on Ubuntu 14.06, 14.07? I can't remember. It's one of the version 14s, the long-term release of version 14 of Ubuntu. If the one we're installing doesn't work, we're going to fall back on this one just in case. Okay? But I got it working, so I believe I can get it working with you. Are there any questions? Yes. Can I what? Yes, I can. Oh, yeah, sure, I can show you that. So click on Start, type in Defender. It'll recommend Windows Security. Select Windows Security. We are concerned about the virus stuff, so we select Virus and Threat Protection. And what we want to do is manage the settings. Okay? So select Manage Settings and scroll down to near the bottom. It's the second last one where it says Exclusions. We want to add or remove exclusions. We click on that. We remove the old one. Sorry? Okay. Yeah, scroll down, exclusions, add or remove exclusions. And then you have one here. It kind of looks like that, but not exactly. Select the drop down and remove. Okay? All right. And then you click on the plus to add. Add a folder. And then go to downloads. And then select malware files not scanned. And select that folder. And it should look like this. Okay? And then that's it. You're done. It automatically saves the settings, so then you can close this down and it should save that setting. All right. Thank you. Anybody else have questions? Yes, sir. Which we are importing Remnux version 7. Of course. Alrighty, any other questions? So, did you import Remnux yet? Okay, so I can't show you right now, so I will do it again so you can see it, okay? But basically what we are doing, I will fake it out differently. This is not what it looks like, but this is what I want you to do. Go File, Import Appliance, select the drop-down arrow, go to Downloads, okay, go to Malware folder, and then select Remnux version 7 like that. Click on Open. Okay? Okay, well, I'll do it again. You can keep going. Import Appliance, drop down, go to Downloads, go to the Remnux, the malware folder, select Remnux, click on Open. Okay. That's because I'm using it slightly different. You can share your desktop and show me. You guys gotta have to start figuring these technical things out on your own. I don't mean to pick on you or anybody, but you're gonna have to start getting confident and just trying stuff. And if it's wrong, it's wrong, but then you have to try again, but you gotta start just being confident and trying stuff. Mamta, go ahead and share your desktop. I can. So double click on malware files not scanned. Double click, and then select Remnux v7 and open. Perfect, and then click on Next. Okay, so just hit enter and see what happens. Perfect. Now, that's the next thing you're going to see is this screen here. I'm going to share my desktop so you guys can see. The next thing you're going to see is all the settings, the default settings. You can then click on the import button at this time and it'll start importing the VM. That I'm going to click on cancel because I've already imported it, but you would click on import and it'll start the import process, and it'll take 3 or 4 minutes, but it will get done. Okay? Okay, so what you have to, yeah, it is the size. So what you need to do is right here. Can you see on my screen this little button here? When you do that, no, it's okay. Whenever you have it full screen, you see that. I think you have it restored like this. What you need to do is scroll down to the bottom. Okay? If you're full screen, there's a restored down button up in the middle here. Can you see that? So you click on that, and then you can scroll down and then you can scroll over and you should be able to see your button at some point. Alright, try that. I'll give you guys until 3:45 to complete the import. As I was saying before, we're going to mess with the settings for this virtual machine. It will probably work, but it won't work well. The more memory we give it, the better it will work. So we're going to up our memory. We're going to slide it until it says 8,192 or 8 gig of RAM. So slide your little base memory so that it says 8,192. Okay? Also, you've got 8 CPUs here. We can give 2 to Remnux. So, memory has 8 gig. The processor has 2 CPU cores. Okay? The next thing is the display. It's probably not required. We have a lot of RAM, so we're going to give ourselves 128 megabytes of RAM. So your slider is down at 16, like around there. Take the slider and slide it all the way up to the right for 128 megabytes of RAM. Storage should be fine. You shouldn't have to do anything for storage, shouldn't have to do anything for audio. You will need to add an adapter. As we often do when we're setting up virtual machines, we want one adapter on the NAT. We want a second adapter on our, don't select that, on our host-only network. So adapter to enable host-only network, and we set the promiscuous mode to allow all. Okay? There should be only one, because this is a brand new setup, there should be only one host-only network. Don't change the adapter type, it's fine. Promiscuous mode to allow all. Okay? So 2 adapters, one that says NAT to talk to the internet, one that says host only to talk locally. And we do need the internet. Okay? We are going to be doing some research online of the different virus signatures we discover. The easiest way to do that is to use the browser inside of Remnux. So you do need to access the internet for this class. You also want to use the host-only network, because at some point we're going to set up Remnux to be the server that we test from. Okay? So you can click on OK. Again, how did I do that? Went to Settings, selected System, changed my memory so it said 8,192. Changed my processors to 2. You can slide it or you can use the up arrow. I changed my display to 128 megabytes. And I went to the network. Adapter 1 is fine. I went to adapter 2, enable, attached to host only, should only be 1, and advanced, I set promiscuous mode to allow all. Click on OK, and you may now start your virtual machine. This first time will take a while, another 5 minutes. When you see a virtual machine start up and it has these little gray bars at the top, you can close it, or you can move to the right and it says do not show this message again. When you click on that, you will never see that warning again. I like to click on that because I hate seeing those messages. They don't tell me anything I don't know. As always, we can look at the status bar and see the hard drive read-write. So it's loading from the hard drive. The processor is almost non-existent. It peaks, but by and large, it's the file I/O that's really problematic in this class. Now I know I have a solid state drive in my laptop, but if this had been on my laptop with 4 gig of RAM, it'd be up and running by now. Mamta, go ahead. As you see, we have time. Okay, I got another little one of these warning messages here. I'm going to clear that away because I don't need to see it. This is not a good sign. This is a really bad sign. Okay, that's better. That's better. That's... oh, that's okay. That's actually good. If it can show the boot screen, we're good. Ha! Success. This is what you want to see. I hope you can see on my display. You want to see that purple screen with Ubuntu 18.04 and the little 4 flashing lights. Eventually you will get there. It is slow, and it's really slow the first time. But as you can see, you're going to have to get here early, turn on your virtual machine early, launch Virtualbox, turn on the virtual machine so that you're ready for class, because it will take a few minutes. It will get a little bit faster further along when it starts caching the files a little bit better. These initial startups take a little longer. Nevertheless, it will take time because there's a lot of people using the storage system that we're using. I believe. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. Did somebody have a question? As long as you see hard drive read writes happening at the bottom here, little flashes of green and little flashes of red, it's still trying to load the file system. It's still trying to load the operating system, I should say, for Ubuntu. So we're still looking pretty good, even though it doesn't look like anything's happening. Once it's up and running, it will be a little faster. If you have any questions, let me know. If anybody gets theirs working before me, also let me know, because that's really going to annoy me. You're already logged in. Well, what the hell is going on with mine? God damn it. Okay, well, we'll just wait for mine to catch up. I don't know why mine's going slow. They're all from the exact same pool, so this is frustrating. Okay. You're going to have to go in to this, and where it says running, you're going to have to toggle that switch at the end. So that's going to be part of your shutdown process. Yeah. Is anybody else not logged in yet to Remnux? Yeah, mine did as well. Okay, like mine is now. Yeah. Okay. So at this point, shut down the VM and try importing it, or try starting it again. I don't think it's going to start, but we'll try starting it again. If that doesn't work, delete it, delete all files, and import a new one. Because shutting it down like that is going to orphan some of the clusters, some of the inodes in the file system. Somebody's smoking weed outside of my apartment. I can smell weed wafting in. That's always weird. Okay, while that's happening, I'm going to move on. We are recording this, so those of you that get a little bit left behind, that's okay. We'll use this setup here. I cannot sit and watch that do nothing. Okay? I do not expect you to do this. If you are in your environment and Remnux is up and running, you can wait until I catch up to you. Okay? This is me trying to move the lesson along. I am recording this and we will be able to look at it later. You will be able to look at it later. By way of refresher, you want to go in, give it 8 gig of RAM, give it 2 cores, up the video display to 128 megabytes. Storage should be fine. It's the network we want to worry about. Adapter 2, enable, and as we've always done in the past, host only. Select the correct host only network. Set promiscuous mode to allow all. Click on OK. Start up the VM. Good. Damn it. As you can see, it's not that complicated a VM. It starts very fast when it doesn't have to store a bunch of file system stuff below the scenes. The one in front is running off of my hard drive. The one in the background is running on Azure services. And that's what you want to see. Okay? As was mentioned by others, this is what you want to see. And the nice thing is that it is scalable in your environment. You can make it as large or as small as you want in your environment. Almost everything we do in Remnux is going to be in the terminal. The only exception is using the browser. At certain points, we're going to go to, there's a couple of sites we're going to look at, but we're going to focus on one site in particular, and that site is called VirusTotal. Okay? We're not there yet. We'll see that I think in a week or so we'll see VirusTotal. So, other than Firefox, everything we're going to be doing, I shouldn't speak in absolutes, almost everything we are going to do is going to be done, when we're using Remnux, is going to be done through the terminal. All the utilities that we run, by and large, will be terminal based. Okay? First off, you want to check your network configuration. All right? Anybody remember how to do that? There you go. IP adder or IPA works as well. And we can see we have 2 adapters, ENP0S3 and ENP0S8. Can you make that out nice and easy now? Can you make that out? Okay. I might have to play with that in some of our other activities, but that should be nice and easy for you to read. Okay? So the first thing we want to do is we want to change this. Now, I have to update the notes because this is new. Historically, you took a look at etc, don't type this in please, network interfaces, and we would add it here. But right now it says, hey, we're no longer using this, we're using netplan. Okay, so let's get out. It's also saying that it's writable, so we're not logged in as root here. All right, so so what we're going to do is sudo nano etc net plan, and then there's only one file. Now how did I do this? I did it with the tab. Alright, so I typed in sudo nano /etc/net tab. I hit tab twice and it said, hey, there's something called netplan. That's what I want. P tab, and it auto-completed net tab. And then I just hit the tab one more time. There's only one file in that directory that we have to worry about, and that is the netconfig.yaml file. We saw YAML files last semester when we were setting up Samba, legacy support for Samba in Kali, in an old version of Kali Linux. It's the same YAML files. Okay? There is a structure here that should look suspiciously like Python code to you. Okay? It's all based on the indents and on the colons. And what you want, go down to the end, 4 spaces enp0s8 colon, enter, and then 1 2 3 4 5 6 dhcp4 colon space yes. So you want to add those 2 lines to your file. You've already got enp0s3, you can add enp0s8. I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to exit out without saving, and I'm going to do it again. Because you're in a terminal, you can copy paste. You can highlight these 2 lines and you can paste them, but it pastes it where the cursor is. You have to paste it at the right spot. So move your cursor down to the bottom, that flashing thing, highlight those 2 lines, and then hit the middle mouse button to paste them. Okay? That was copy and paste using the terminal. And then you just need to change that to an 8, and then you also need to align it so it aligns perfectly. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you type it in or if you copy and paste. You do you. All right? Being a power user in the Unix environment in information security is going to help you a lot. So get used to these little tips and tricks that I keep showing you. At the end of the day, you want to enable DHCP for your second network adapter. Okay? Any questions? Once you've made the change, left control key, you want to write out. So control O, and it says file name to write to, should be fine. If it generates an error, you forgot to do sudo. And then control X. Again, how did I do it? I typed in sudo nano and then that file name. Sudo nano /etc/netp tab, and then 0 tab if you really want. Your file, when you first open it, looks, one sec, when you open it at first, looks something like this. You want to go down to the bottom and add 2 new lines. 4 spaces, enp0s8 colon, enter. 1 2 3 4 5 6 dhcp4 colon space yes. Control O to write out, left control key, control O, enter, and then control X, and it should be saved. Who had a question? Okay. The last thing we're going to do is update Remnux. Normally we do sudo apt update. Do not do that, okay? It might actually cause problems in Remnux. Just like we never did any updates in Kali because it ended up breaking stuff, I'm not sure we should do updates here either. If you want, okay, Jeevanjot, I'll be right with you. If you want, I'm almost done, Jeevanjot, and then we'll talk about this. If you want, you would do Remnux update. I don't think it's necessary, and I'm actually going to say let's not do that and let's just leave it as is, and it seems to be fine. Okay? So at this point, what I want you to do is shut down Remnux. Okay? In the upper right corner, I'm going to resize it. In the upper right corner, you will see the little power icon. Click that and power off. You want to power off Remnux. Okay, and then it will power off. You shouldn't have to do that. Mine is still problematic. I have a feeling, Jeevanjot, that you and I are having the same problem, and we're going to have to re-import it. Bernard, did you get yours working? Okay. All right, Bernard, did anybody else fail to get, by show of hands or by typing in the chat log, anybody else fail to get Remnux started? Okay, so what? Okay, anyway, so we will take a look at that in a sec. Okay, I'll let everybody else go, and I want everybody to do this, including those who are struggling. What we're going to do is we're going to reset Windows. Okay, shut everything down, and then go Windows, power, and then shut down Windows. And it will disappear. But you're not done, okay? Even when you do that, when you take a look at this environment here and you refresh it, Windows is probably still going to be running, right? This is my view into the system if I was just a regular user. This is not my portal access in. And it shows that my VM is still running. Even though I said shut down, it's still running. So, after a couple of minutes, toggle it off. Okay? If you shut everything down in Windows, you shut down Windows, you really only need to wait a minute or two. You can come out to the Azure Lab Services webpage and you can power off your virtual machine at that point. Okay? So I'm seeing 5 hands of people who are still struggling with Remnux. I want you to power off your VM and power it back on. All of you that are struggling. Okay? Everybody else. Yeah.
Okay, so if, and this is only if, you have failed to properly start up your VM inside of Azure. If you were struggling with trying to get this to work, then what I want you to do is after you have powered off the VM, start it up again, and we'll wait till it comes online. This may take some time. It'll take a few minutes, so I'm going to pause the recording. And after a few minutes, 4 or 5 minutes or so, your status will change from stopped to running, at which time you can select the Connect to Virtual Machine icon. When you click on that, you should be able to actually open it with the RDP software. Again, I prefer Firefox. I know some of you use Chrome, but this is probably the easiest way to do it because you're already in this dialog box. So just open it up with the RDP software and use the password that we specified before. and the Remember Me. At which time it should log you in to your desktop. And as a reminder, you really do want to change that password. I usually like to have my Virtualbox pinned to the taskbar so it's a single click launch. We're going to be using it quite a bit in this class, so you might as well do that. Now, we've tried a couple of times to get this VM to work. It hasn't worked. So, right click. If your VM is working, if you were able to start it up and verify the network connections, you do not need to do this. We're going to hope that there is a caching solution to the performance issues that we're having, and that once your VM is working, you don't need to remove it. If you have never successfully logged in after 2 or 3 attempts of restarts of your Remnux VM, at this time you need to right click, select remove, and delete all the files. You can pause this video during playback because there's going to be a lot of dead air yet again. I will actually be pausing so that I'm not recording a whole bunch of dead air. Once you have removed the VM, you can then import it again as we did before. Select Import, navigate through the file system, go to Downloads, Malware Files Not Scanned, and select the version 7 of the VM. Because most of the class was able to get this to work, I expect you to repeat this process until you get it working. We're not going to change any of the settings on this screen. We are going to import it as is. And once it's done importing, we will then change the settings and try launching the virtual machine again. I'm going to pause the recording at this time. And you may want to pause this recording until you actually see that the VM has successfully imported, like we see now. Once it's in, again, before we start it, we have to make some setting changes. As before, general is fine, don't need to worry about that. It's the system we want. The default import head 4 gig, we want to up that to 8 gig, or 8,192 megabytes. The slider is the easiest way to do that. We want to up the number of processors from 1 to 2. We don't have to change the video display, but because it is a graphical environment, we should give it a little bit more video memory. Storage is fine. We don't need to add a CD-ROM or anything. The other thing we need to modify is the network. Again, adapter 1 set to the internet, set to NAT is fine. Adapter 2, enable the adapter, attach it to your host-only network. You should only have one. Go to Advanced, set the promiscuous mode to allow all. Very similar to what we have done with so many of our VMs in the past for pen testing. Okay? Again, 2 cores, 8 gig of memory, 128 meg of video RAM, and adapter 1, do not touch. Adapter 2, enable, host only, should be fine. Promiscuous mode, allow all. Click on OK, and you can review your settings here. You can see your adapter, you can see the amount of base memory, you can see the number of cores, so you can tell right away that your settings are correct, at which time you can start your VM. Hopefully this time the VM will actually start up and we will be able to log in. As always, you want to keep an eye on the status bar and make sure that it is still trying to work. You can see file I/O happening here, and you can see the processor maxing out. These are indicators that it is still trying to start up, and that's what you want to see. I'm going to pause the recording again, and hopefully this will open up into a virtual machine within a couple of minutes. The first time it starts, it does a check of the hard drive. It's still trying to load, but I'm hearing from others today that Azure is especially slow, so we'll have to see how this goes. And as you can see, Azure, my VM crashed. I have pretty good internet connectivity. I'm fairly confident that this is not an internet connectivity issue. I'm fairly certain that this is a file I/O issue, and that caused Remnux correction. That caused Windows, our Malware VM, to crash badly. So, we're going to try this at another time, but when you see something like this, really all you can do is cancel and then try again at a later date. Hopefully, when you see something like this, your VM is actually going to start. Alrighty. If you are lucky and you have successfully had Remnux install in the Azure malware environment, you should see something like this. When we take a look at the top, it only identifies one network adapter. So we need to tell Remnux to use the second adapter. Okay. Also note that up here is where the volume controls, which don't matter, and the power button exists for Remnux. Also, please note that you should be able to scale the size of this window as you need. And it should redraw the screen in the background, as mine did. Okay. It'll say, hey, how do you want to lay it out? That's fine. You can also scale the terminal window inside the larger window, but as I said before, most of the activities we're going to do in Remnux are going to be in the terminal. The few exceptions, as I mentioned before, are going to be in Firefox inside Remnux. Not Firefox inside of the VMware, the malware VM. Remnux has a specific version of Firefox, and that's what we are going to use. But that's for later. If we take a look at the addresses assigned to our network adapters, we can see that ENP0S3 has an adapter, ENP0S8 does not. We need to configure that. One of the ways, the way that we are going to do that is by modifying the network configuration file. Historically, we would modify using the nano command. We are not logged in as root, so we do sudo nano, like that. And historically, we would modify etc network interfaces. But you can type it in, but that is no longer used. We have to use netplan. So we need to exit out, left control key and exit, so we are back to the command line. And as the network interfaces file said, we want to manage nano etc netp tab. net plan, and then just hit the tab key, and it will open up the netcfg.yaml file. We have seen YAML files in the past. We didn't open them up and take a look at them, but we used YAML files when we were downgrading the Samba version in an older version of Kali so we could do some pen testing around Samba shares. It's the same file format, and you should see it looks very similar to what we did when we were coding Python, in that it has colons and indentation to identify blocks. Okay? We want below these two lines, we want to add these two lines. Now I'm going to show you how to do this the quick way. Highlight everything for those two lines. Because we are in a smart terminal here, we simply need to highlight them, and when we press the middle button, the wheel button on our mouse, it will paste us wherever our cursor was. Okay? Again, how did I do that? Well, first thing, I was up here at the top. I was up at the very top of my document. So the first thing I do is I move my cursor down to where I want to add my two lines. I highlight those two lines with my mouse, and then I press the middle button, and it pastes them. Make sure that the indentation is correct for the two new lines. All right? That is the same level as that. That is the same level as that. And then we can go back up and change the ENP0S3 to S8. Okay? ENP0S3, ENP0S8. We are done our work. We can write out, so Control O, Enter, and then Control X to save our work. Once we have changed that, we can test our network connection with the sudo netp tab. We're going to do the netplan command, and we're going to specify the try argument. And when we do that, it is going to try the configuration, and it says it'll keep those if you hit enter within 2 minutes. I hit enter, it accepted the configuration, and I can do IP adder, and I can see that ENP0S3 and ENP0S8 are both configured. Once you have that done, you have your network set up. If you have any errors with the IP adder command or with the netplan try command, then you again have to verify that your netconfig.yaml file looks like this. Indentation is important, and ENP0S3, ENP0S8. If you're having any problems, let Stephen know, and your instructor know, and he will walk you through the process. Okay? If you have Nano open, left Control X to exit. Once you have your network configured, another command you can type in is Remnux update. I'm going to advise against that. If you want to play with it, by all means, feel free to play with it. But just like Kali, and updating Kali sometimes cause problems, I want a consistent experience in Remnux, so we're not going to update Remnux. We're all going to use the same version that we downloaded and installed. So at this point, exit out of your terminal. So you have the Remnux desktop. Upper right corner, select the power option, and then select the power off for the virtual machine. It should be much quicker at powering off than it was for powering on. Once your virtual machine has powered off, you can close the Virtualbox manager, but this is critically important. Start, shut down Windows, select the shutdown option, and again, after a couple of minutes, you want to go into your lab services you're going to see that your virtual machine, we'll see if this works, is still running. And even if you give it a couple of minutes, it's going to keep running. So after you shut down Windows, you must go back to your My Labs area where you have your listing of the virtual machines that I've assigned to you, and you must shut off your virtual machine here. Because if you fail to, you're going to have, I can't show you because it's just too problematic. You're going to have a scenario where you use a bunch of extra hours unnecessarily. Okay? I'm down to 3 hours here. That's far more reasonable than being at 20 hours, which is what I have here. So, shut down Remnux, shut down Windows, and then finally go into your My Virtual Machines page in Azure Lab Services and stop your virtual machine from running right here. It will take a little while, but eventually it will show it as stopped. And again, if you have any questions on this, reach out to your instructor.